Hey, it's Bill, and you're tuned into the Pennsylvania Rock Show, featuring the best unsigned rock and metal that Pennsylvania has to offer, right here on PARockShow.com, MegaRockRadio.net, 107.1 FM, St. Louis, Missouri, AltRockRadio.ca in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, RooterRadio.com on the beaches of San Diego, California, Alt Rock, I did that one already, XRPRadio.co.uk in Birmingham, United Kingdom, and right here in the thriving metropolis of Leechburg, Pennsylvania, with our two green lights, red lights, whatever you want to call them, BuildTheScene.com. My name is Bill. This is episode number 587 of the Pennsylvania Rock Show. With me tonight is a name that you may recognize, Dave Hillis. What's up, Dave?
I'm doing good. What's up?
Not too much. I did a little prep work. I was listening to a couple of your tracks. I went and listened to some Alice in Chains, and that's where we're going to head here first.
They're quite a bit different, aren't they?
Yes. So the reason I said that your name is one they might recognize is you have done some work for some big name bands in the studio, and I'm going to give you a chance to do some name dropping, and then we'll talk about The Vault and your album and lots of other things. But let's start with the name dropping first.
All right. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be around in Seattle and at the right studio at the right decade there, where we had a good run going on. So, we did worked with Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains. Those are, various other ones, a little bit with Candlebox, and I'm trying to think now that you ask, like, I have to think who all came in there.
Temple of the Dog.
Temple of the Dog record. A lot in between that, weren't as famous as those, of course. So it's all relative in some ways. Because when we started, obviously nobody was really famous, outside of, Pearl Jam having a bit of success before that, some other things. But yeah, I know. And then from there, I went on to do other things in other states or whatever. I also worked with James Blunt, his big pop debut, all his writing stuff, and that was in London. And then I also had a good run with the Afghan Wigs and Greg Dooley from the Afghan Wigs side project solo stuff, Twilight Singers, where I got to work with Mark Lanigan on that from the Screaming Trees. So somehow they all connect in some weird way, except James Blunt. That was just a fluke. But yeah, and then just earlier on, I was involved in some metal scene and things like that.
You started playing at a pretty young age, if I remember reading the bio correctly, and we're in a fairly big band at a young age too. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was. I started. I started like piano actually at 5. Didn't really follow that up, but then guitar was like the instrument I really went for, and we started that at 10. But I was really right away. I was just interested in writing original stuff. I didn't really get into covers or anything, and so I started going to saving up and whatever I had to do to get into recording studios really early in high school. Did not know what I was doing or what even studio to pick or anything like that. And with no intention to be a studio guy at all. It was all about me trying to get my songs and my, dreams of rock stardom happening and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was in and I was very ambitious. So I'd sent out my demos like right away. I just started literally looking at the back of records and sending them to record labels, which, most of them sure just got thrown away, but I was naively ambitious about all of it, tried it. But surprisingly enough, I got, and that was, it was really, I was coming from a heavy metal, new wave, British new wave, heavy metal type background. But at the same time, things were getting heavier, and I was also getting into some local punk rock stuff. And so we were, the whole scene in San Francisco started happening. And I sent a demo and I got a letter back from Metalblade Records, which at the time was putting out, the Metal Massacre V series that had, pretty much discovered everybody from that genre back then. Metallica and Slayer and Voivod and Celtic Frost, on and on and on. And we happened to get on Metal Massacre V. So that was when, that's what kind of started like thinking that, wow, maybe I could do this, even though it was, terrible recordings and independent, this and that, but it was a start to something to where I could think outside of local, and so I just kind of always kept my sights on that. But yeah, we were lucky. We had some success from that. We got our own deal, and we put a couple of records out that, we did the whole fanzine thing. We were like fanzines all around the world. We signed a European deal then, and did our own tours. Like I said, with San Francisco, we would travel from Seattle down to San Francisco because that's where it was happening. It wasn't really happening quite yet in Seattle, way pre-grunge. And that's, we started playing with all those bands, Exodus and Testament and Possessed and like Death Angel, and Metallica would be at our shows and like stuff like that. So we were, that just really, like I said, was my introduction to like, I could do this, or I could make records and people might listen to them. Even though we were terrible, really. But
what made you transition into the studio from playing?
Well, so as we were, as I was growing up a bit and doing it, like when I went, I just didn't have any concept of actual what was good. I mean, I guess I did. What was good production, I was going to say. I mean, I guess I did, like from bands like Boston and things like that. But I didn't really care at that time. It was all about, the excitement and the emotion of metal and thrash and stuff like that. But as I was getting in it more and starting to understand that, man, I need to do this at a better level. I started really digging into, getting my own gear. I used some of the money to buy like a Fostex tape machine, and I had a 4-track, and then I started like programming drum machines and samplers, and just started doing that. Still not really ambitious to be an engineer necessarily. I was thinking still more of a writer and maybe a producer, if I even knew what that really was yet. And but how that kind of transitioned is when I actually did a demo for myself with some new. I was trying to start a new band for a couple of years. Just nothing was really happening. Couldn't find the right lineup, and I was trying to move away a little bit from thrash metal and stuff, and just experimenting, like a lot of people were doing at that time. Like this was pretty grunge. Everybody was trying to find the sound. Everybody's still really influenced by the LA scene, or that was fading away now. And so I was going through that process too. And I booked some time at London Bridge Studios because good things were starting to happen out of there. Like, bands that deal, it was just, it seemed it was the most pro place. I mean, actually there's a lot of good studios in Seattle. I don't know how that city had so many good studios now that I've traveled. I didn't realize how many we had there until I left, outside of LA, but London Bridge had something special. So I went there, and that's how I kind of met Rick Parashar, who I ended up working for the studio. Him and his brother owned. Rick was the producer there. And funny part about that was he didn't even really want to be a producer. It was more, he was trying to keep the family business happening, but he was just naturally really good. He was also a trained pianist and like super smart and talented on his own right. But, funny enough, not a grunge guy in the least. He was more classical and things like that, but he was so technically savvy and musically savvy that it didn't really matter what he was style of music, it was going to be good. So talking to him, he had saw that he didn't even work with me on my demo. It was Don Gilmore, actually, who went on to do Linkin Park, but he was just starting out too. And later on, I'd seen him at a club, and he'd recognized me from the studio. He said, "Oh, hey, how'd your session go?" I went, "Oh, yeah, it went great, man, da-da-da." And then he invited me back to the studio for a little get-together. He said, "Hey, why don't you bring some of your friends here?" Because I think he knew that I was dialed into the scene, kind of, and wanted to, have me back to the studio, just get people there. And he happened to say that he was looking for an assistant, and, I went, that sounds like a good thing to do, you know. And I go, man, yeah, I know about this and that. And so I hounded him for a couple of weeks until he like had me come over, and I came over all prepared with demos and whole speech worked out of how I was going to get this job, and he didn't want to hear any of it. He just didn't really care, and he was just like, "Are you going to be able to be here?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, well, you know, let's try it." And I go, "Great. What do I need to do?" And I've told this story before, but he handed me a physics book, like a hardback physics book from University of Washington, where he went. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I want to rock, you know, like what's this about? And later on, I kind of figured I still have it on my bookshelf too. But you know, it was an attempt to like, forget your rock star stuff, dude. Like, you know, there's some serious things you need to learn, and you know, with frequencies and things like that,
wavelengths and
physics,
things like
that. I
am teaching that stuff to my 4th graders right now.
Excellent. Yeah. So that kind of set the tone of our working relationship right there. He was, you know, no nonsense in the studio. Outside the studio, different story, but inside the studio, it was all work, you know, and took everything very seriously. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I fell into engineering. And then, you know, that when I first came in, and I'd already known all the guys from Temple Dog, all the bands, because we were all in the local scene together. We all had the same rehearsal studio places or at the same parties, same group of friends, you know, we all knew each other and who was in that band and who's the competition, you know, that kind of thing. So that wasn't necessarily, it was, you know, it was just like, oh, the local dudes, but he happened to be working on the Temple of the Dog stuff. He was just getting ready to mix it when I came in. So that's kind of where that started. But yeah, then, so point being is that then like a few weeks out after that, I'm working on a band from Portland called Love and Ice, who just signed this really huge deal with Interscope Records. So basically within the first couple of weeks, I'm working on major label records, and he just kind of threw me in the fire, like, go do this, you know, learn the patch bay, and like I'm turning knobs on this Neve, and like he knew that he knew that I came from a guitar background, and I knew about all the pedals and the sounds and tones. I was a guitar nerd. So he like, you know, used that to his advantage. Like, we're doing these guitar rock bands, and that wasn't necessarily his total forte. So that's how he kind of got off and running. And like I said, he just kind of threw me in the fire. There was no like training really. It was just like, and I, you know, basically kind of made his training was he kind of felt stupid all the time, you know, because he, like I do something, he goes, you're boosting the same frequency twice. Like, I don't know. Oh, okay. You know, patch bay and everything was like high stress. Like I was always just freaking out, but it was good. And so then all of a sudden I'm an engineer. I'm like, oh, I didn't ever plan on doing that. And, but now I've been doing it for over 30 years. So it's like, it's become a thing.
That's kind of how this show started. Can you hear that music in the background?
No.
Okay.
No.
My daughter's door is open.
You're describing my house. I have an 11-year-old daughter, so
I have twin 11-year-old daughters.
Oh, wow! All right, you win.
And a 13-year-old son.
Okay.
So it occurred to me while you're talking that I may have been going about something all wrong, and I'm going to ask my first off the wall question because it kind of plays into all the names you've been throwing out. So I've been trying for probably at least 2 years to get Dave Grohl to acknowledge that I exist and come on my show.
Okay.
And I feel like you might know somebody that might know him.
You know, I don't. I've Nirvana. You know, it's funny because I get asked about Nirvana. Like, you work for them, but did you work with Nirvana? I mean, that's all that anybody really cared about.
I didn't ask that. I asked if you knew someone that knew.
So I know. I was thinking, and I really don't. I mean, maybe some way, but I doubt it. Not enough to pull anything off for you there. But yeah, I always they weren't really. I saw them play at like the smallest clubs, Vogue, and like walked out. Like not walked out because they were bad. I just like didn't give it. You know, I was doing other stuff. And I remember I had a friend at the time that just thought they were the best thing. You know, with Bleach. He was coming out, and I was just like, but they were never really around Seattle, like not like the other bands. Those guys I saw all the time, everywhere. But they never, it's fun. They're so known for Seattle, but they really weren't necessarily like in the Seattle scene, as it were.
Well, here's the question, and I'll give you a little bit of the backstory. Something I like in the local scene is when a local band sees someone from another local band and they're like, "Hey, come up on stage and do this song with us."
Sure. How much has that ever really happened?
I see it a lot.
Do you?
I do.
It's never happened for me. I want somebody to invite me up, and they never do.
Well, that's here comes the question. It's perfect. So the Foo Fighters are known for bringing their fans up,
right?
Sign up. I want to come play.
Videos, yeah.
Right. So my question is, who's your Dave Grohl? In other words, who would you want to go up on stage with and perform a song?
Well, now I'm so out of practice, I wouldn't. But I don't know. I think I don't know. I would have to really think about it. Who would be my Dave Grohl? I don't know. I did. I take it back. I did one time get to go. Probably not the coolest thing, but when Counterbox played a big show once, they asked me to come up, and they did a cover of Kiss song, and I didn't even know it. I'm like, but I ain't gonna say no. I'm just kind of looking at the other guys and trying to hit the right chords. But yeah, who would be I don't know. I mean, I like a lot of different kinds of bands too, like like My Bloody Valentine or something. But that would make no sense of me ever going up with them. I don't know. I bet you as soon as we hang up, I'm going to go, I should have said this guy. I can't think of someone off the spot.
Yeah, well, you have time.
Okay.
It
might pop in,
So you mentioned that you've worked in studios all over the place. I've heard you also mention being in Seattle and San Francisco, and you're in Pittsburgh now. Where else have you worked as far as studios go?
A lot of LA. I lived down there for a while as well, but I was always going back and forth for LA. Detroit, New York, Electric Lady at New York. Got to work there. That was cool. And I was in London for a while, so I got to work in London. I was working, actually had a little thing going on there. That's how the James Blunt and different things came up, is that I was from a previous connection manager, the vice president of EMI Publishing at the time, I had a connection with, and I hooked up with him in London, and he was really, hooked me up to where I could work out of their studios there, EMI Publishing, their studios, which was amazing. And he was feeding me some acts, and he was also like, if you need a studio for anything, just go to the book and just write in. If it's open, write your name in there and take whoever you want to develop. So that was really cool. I got to, have a place to actually work out of that was, pretty well known and stuff. So those are the main ones, and I just, any opportunity to work somewhere else, I would. I recently worked down in Nashville for the first time at Sputnik Studios. Vance Powell's place. So that was cool.
You mentioned the Electric Ladyland. This show used to be live in my living room. The bands would show up and play live.
Oh, that's cool.
And I had a connection with a guy who owned a company called Total Music and Entertainment. And he actually taught me how to run a mixer through AOL Instant Messenger while I was live mixing bands.
Oh, man.
And
talk about throwing in the fire. There you go.
Yeah. And he was on dial up. So there was a delay.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I fixed it 30 seconds after he heard it.
Right.
But he ran front of house at Star Lake in Burgettstown. He was signed writer to a couple different labels. So he had some connections, and he happened to be in Electric Ladyland one day, and my show was broadcasted live in the studio, which was really cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience for me. It was an odd gig. I was working at the time. I was working on a lot with Greg Dooley, who I mentioned from the Afghan Waves, and he was really good friends with Dennis Leary, the comedian. And Dennis was doing his record and was having Greg be one of the producers on it. Just like kind of a weird thing. And Greg calls me one day, hey, you free next week? And I'm like, could be, and he's like, you want to come to New York? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And Greg's style doesn't really tell me much of anything. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to New York. I end up working, and then we're at Electric Lady. I'm like, oh, this is great. Who we doing? And it's Dennis. It's like a comedy record, but it was so much fun. And Eddie Kramer happened to be working in Studio B doing Jimi Hendrix like reissue stuff, and like I ran into him in the hallway. He invites me in. He starts playing it for me. I'm like, this is so cool. I'm sitting around all day because those guys would be so late. They'd show up at like 10 at night. I'm there at 10 in the morning, and so I'd hang out and the manager, I forget her name at the time, studio manager, was just telling me all these great like inside stories and stuff that's happened there. And it was Joe Blaney was there. He big producer, did like Ramones and Blondie and things like that. He was telling me stories. I mean, it was just like a fun, like I had nothing but fun there. And Dennis was like awesome and super funny in the control room. But interesting gig.
It's definitely.
And we snuck in me and Greg in Studio A, main studio, really cool one. D'Angelo was in there, booked out for like a year or something. And like, there's like security there and everything. There's there's a 24-hour desk person and all that stuff. And it somehow Greg's like, constantly like he's always pushing the limit. There's always some kind of trouble's gonna happen with him. and he's like, let's break into D'Angelo's room, into the studio. And I'm like, how are we going to break in? And I don't even remember how we did, but we got in there. And I'm like, we're going to get busted. Like we're going to get in trouble for this. And we're sitting in his lounge, and like, because there's like a private lounge, walking around. It's amazing, all this amazing equipment and all that. But yeah, it was some cool times. New Orleans too. We worked at Daniel Law's Kingsway studio, which was another month of like in New Orleans with the Afghan wigs, dude. I came back looking like I was 10 years old, or bags on my It was quite the experience. So yeah, I've got to work at some cool places.
So now you're at the Vault.
At the Vault
on Neville Island. How did you?
Yeah, which I can barely get to now because the bridge is all being.
I haven't been there in a while. Does it still smell like chemicals?
I haven't noticed that, but I haven't been out here that long, but yeah, I don't know. Honestly, the studio is so right off the exit there that you're off and in the studio anyway, so I wouldn't even know if it's got a smell. But it looks like it could, parts of it over there.
Yes.
But yeah, no, that's, that was the thing too. When I came out here, I was researching too before, and I'm like, there's no studios here. What? I mean, there was, but nothing. I was kind of spoiled, finds out. I worked at school. I'm like, there's got to be a Neve room or an SSL room at least somewhere for like commercials or something. And I couldn't find anything really. And I was kind of like, all right, well, I was kind of in a crossroads. Like, I didn't even know if I was going to do music much anymore. I didn't even know what I was going to really do. So, but then, of course, it's always the itch is there. I'm always like, and then, so I'm checking around places, seeing, I'm just trying to figure out what's the move. And I thought, well, maybe, I'll just go down to Nashville and New York when I have to. And then I got called to do a, what do you call it? Music conference thing in Nashville, where I was a keynote speaker. I was like, oh, that's cool. It came out of nowhere. It kind of kept me back into the music, into doing it, because I was thinking about maybe just not doing it anymore. And then met all those people there, which led to some work down there. But I come back and go, man, I got to find something. It's just not here in this town. And then I read somewhere that Bob McCutcheon opens a Neve room in Neville Island. And I'm like, to my wife, where the hell's Neville Island? Is it close? Tell me it's close. And, she goes, oh, it's not far. And I'm like, we got to go meet him. And I set up an appointment to like look at the studio. And that's kind of how that started.
I was interviewing Bradley Scott Malone last night for my other podcast,
Right.
and he told me that the whole studio came about because Bob was watching.
Speaking of Dave Grohl.
Yep. He was watching that. Why can't I think of it? Music City, is that what it's called?
Yeah, the one about Sunset, not Sunset Sound. God, now we're both blanking.
But you know what?
Sound City.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. He I don't know how much you know of his story, but yeah, he had his own recording studio like as a teenager or something like that, but he went into real work, business work, and became very successful. God bless him. And he was on a plane, and that movie came on, and it inspired him so much to do what he always really dreamt of doing. And he was at the point in life where he could afford to do that. And boom, he built it. And as they say, we built it and they will come. And I was like, I came out of nowhere. So the whole thing, the whole synchronicity of it is pretty weird. Even like, I've been here like just 4 years now. And like from the time I got here to now, it's completely different. There's like studios now, or people adding real recording consoles. A studio called Tonic just put in an API that they asked me to help with, and there's all kinds. It's just in 4 years, even through COVID and everything, it really grew.
So now it's my turn to drop some names. Sid Riggs and
I know Sid.
Lee Caruso Jr.
I just talked to Lee for like 2 hours last night on the phone. So I know those guys. I was helped them with picking out the API and all that.
I have something in the works that I can't talk about right now. But,
okay.
But I just did some name dropping.
Well, there you go too. So now, like, those are people like Sid. Like, we talk and we go, I can't believe we hadn't run into each other in LA before, and but I meet him here, and so yeah, we're good friends now. We've been doing a lot of stuff for Tonic. And I heard somebody else moved to town too. I can't remember his name, but like some big heavyweights resumed. And like I said, all of a sudden I thought, man, I came to a ghost town of with nothing, and it turned out it does all kinds of stuff. And I just recently, right before COVID hit, I did the Ghost Hounds, speaking, and that came from my Pittsburgh trip, because Vance Powell, who's red hot engineer now, he was mixing that record, and they needed an engineer because he was busy doing Chris Stapleton. And because I had met him and became friends with him down in Nashville, he had called me and said, "You're in Pittsburgh. You're the only person I can think of. You're perfect. You want to take this gig from me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what?" And it was the Ghost Hounds thing. And he, Thomas Toll from the Ghost Hounds, he built his own amazing private studio. So I was like, where did this all, like a really short period of time for all that to happen? So yeah, now all of a sudden Pittsburgh's becoming a studio town.
My introduction to the Vault was through Royal Honey.
Okay.
I did their website, and then
okay.
Eric started the SOS PGH.
Right.
And that's when I started talking with the Borstal Boys, whose website I do.
Rocky and the Borstal Boys, yeah.
I do Rocky's I do their website now. I did the SOS PGH website.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you're tied in.
I interviewed quite a few of the artists last night. Like I said, I did Bradley Scott Malone. I did Slam Band and Sam. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but there's no Sam.
Yeah, I am actually. Yeah. No, I am. I actually went in one day and helped him a little bit on a guitar sound thing. That was fun. I like those guys.
I interviewed Gallo Locknez, who
I know Gallo. Yeah.
Hip hop, which isn't normally my thing, but I really enjoyed talking to him and his stuff.
He's got the internet promotion thing down to
science.
Definitely. I see him. I feel like I know him even better than I do, just because I see him every morning, every day when I check my phone. Like he's got something new up.
The funniest thing he said to me, he was like, I'm starting to get recognized and it's weird. He goes, the other day I went to McDonald's and they gave me extra food.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
But so who have you worked with at the Vault?
Let's see what have we done at the Vault. Well, I brought a band out from England, actually, that I got a random hit me up on the internet from these young kids in England. They were like, I think the oldest guy was 19, so like 17 or 18, 19. They were just called Sierra Nevada, and they were out. And so I happened to be going to England, and I said, I go, I don't know how you can make, this work. It takes money. And I thought they were probably too young to pull it all off or whatever. And they were still developing. And I go, it might be too big of a thing for you guys to, do some demos first at home for a little bit, and I'll help you out via phone advice or whatever. But I was going there, and I go, so to test the water to see how real they were, they're from Hull, England, which is up north. And I said, I'll be in London. I can make a little bit of time, we could do lunch or something, but I know that's probably a distance. So, I understand. And they were like, no, we'll come to London. So they did. So I applauded them for their dedication on that, tenacity to make it happen. And I was like, all right, if you got, so anyway, they ended up getting the money together to get themselves out here. So we did that there. And that was a blast having them in town, because they were like full on, to them, coming to America was a big deal. Like I was trying to go, hey, I could come to England and do this. But no, we want to come to America. And I'm like, yeah, I figured, okay. But they had a blast here. So we did that. That was a good one. I don't know why my brain's frying so much. Who else have I been doing there? Oh, I just did 2 metal bands in a row, which is really funny because of all my metal history. I haven't done a metal record in ages. I don't know why. Just hasn't fallen in my lap. Hasn't, cause just nothing. I'm like, man. So I just did a band from West Virginia called Truck Stop, and then Stage of Dreams, which they're from Youngstown, Ohio, but they came through the Vault. So I just did those 2 records there, and that was cool because, like I said, I hadn't done that in a long time.
That metal thing made me think. Have you done any work with Rob Diener in the other office?
We keep threatening to. We talk about it all the time. He was actually talking about doing some Atmos and surround type mixes for my record, but we actually haven't done anything yet together. But he comes down whenever I'm doing, like during the metal bands I was doing. I'm kind of over the top with the guitars and how many pedals and how many loud I do it and how many freaking mics I use. I'm like everybody. They always come. They all make fun of me. They come in and they just laugh because I have like 1,000 things going on, and I go, "Oh, you're not using every mic in the building yet." So Rob always drops it because I'll have the guitars so loud it's bleeding up into his room. So he goes, "Oh, I guess it's a Dave Hillis session," So he harasses me about that, but yeah, we actually haven't done. He told me he used my Marshall the other day, and said because I leave a Marshall at the studio. So, but yeah, we haven't actually worked yet.
Yeah, the reason his name rang when you mentioned metal is he works with the band called Skell.
Right.
And I do.
He kept dropping their name, and I was like, I didn't know what he was saying I didn't know it was a band name. Like he just threw it in conversation. I'm like, what is it? What is he saying? Like, so I finally figured out it was a band.
Yeah, I've known them. Well, I've known their lead singer since probably 2001, and I met the rest of the band later.
So you're doing a ton of work in that whole circle.
I am. And I didn't think about it until I started talking to you. I'm like, wow, we probably know a lot of the same people.
Yeah, it's like that's my whole real, been my introduction to Pittsburgh. Well, then and then I met the Tonic guys, so I'm getting starting to get know people, or people starting to know I'm here. That was the hard thing. Like nobody really.
Well, I didn't know you were here until Bob sent me a message and goes, "Hey, do you want to interview Dave Hillis?" And I was like, "Yeah, how do you know him?" He's like, he's at the vault. I'm like, he is?
Yeah, it's funny.
But, all right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to go ahead and play a scale track. I think maybe we'll play Lose Myself, and then we're going to play a Winner's Descent track called Fortune, which
that's Lee did. Yeah, okay.
That Lee
I heard
did.
him talking about. Or it's Lee and is that Lee and Sid or just Lee?
I'm not sure if Sid was on that one. I know
they were working on something together. I don't know what.
Well, we'll chat off the air.
Okay.
But I know for sure Lee was on it. I don't know if Sid was. He probably was, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
So we'll listen to those two tracks, and we will come right back. For those of you that are listening live, first of all, you can comment on the videos, and Dave and I will actually see what you're saying and can interact with you. And second, you're not going to get to hear those songs until Friday when the show actually gets released. I'm surprised that's the first time I really messed up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come back in as if we played those two songs and do some more talking. All right, so that was Fortune by Winner's Descent. And right before that, you heard Scale, Lose Myself. My name is Bill. This is the Pennsylvania Rock Show, episode number 587. With me tonight is Dave Hillis. If you're watching the video, his beard's bigger than mine. That's how you know.
This was a, like everybody, this was a COVID experiment that went haywire. And now, like, everybody's like, I've been wanting to shave it. And like, everybody's like, dude, you can't shave it now. Now everybody knows you this way. I'm like, really? Because I think about it every morning, and then even my wife, she likes it. And everybody's like, does your wife hate it? I go, no. Surprisingly enough, she likes it, and I look at it every day. I think I look like an old farmer who lost his farm.
Well, the good thing with mine is that my beard is strawberry blonde, so my gray is kind of hidden in there, but it's there.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too. It came out so gray. I'm like, oh man, I'm really just making myself look old, aren't I? But I don't know. Apparently, it's a thing now. So
I feel I'll
ride it out for a little while longer.
I feel like it might give you a wizard look.
That's so funny. So that's what somebody said to me. He said, look, or somebody commented, I think, on something on Facebook or something. They said, well, who wouldn't want a wizard to work on their record? So I said, okay, I might have to keep it for a little bit. see if my bookings go up. Mine
currently is at the length that my wife is starting to get tired of it.
Yeah.
She sent my daughter out to ask me if I could bite my mustache yet.
Yeah, it's really shocking to me too. I got to tell you, I'm shocked every day when I look at it. I'm like, I can't believe I still have this thing.
I am. 1 year when I was teaching, my principal kind of told me I had to shave. She was like, "That's got to go." I was like,
"Yeah, I couldn't grow them for so long, so I don't know." But
okay. Anyway,
yeah, we digress.
Let's do some more of those oddball questions. So you're walking along and you come across the DeLorean. So you can hop into the DeLorean and you can go back in time, but you can't meet yourself or anyone you're related to because then Doc Brown's going to yell at you.
You know what's weird? My uncle owned a DeLorean.
I want one.
My uncle owned one, and I was just about ready to get my license, and I would I'd sit in it, But he's like, "Well, when you get your license, he'll let you drive it." And of course, like, he didn't have it by the time I got my license. I always had that DeLorean memory. But anyway,
all right. So you can go back in time and follow any musician in the history of the world to learn from them, hang out with them, just talk to them. Who would you want to hang out with?
I mean, dude, so many. That's like a tough one.
Oh, just wait.
I'd have to split them up into some different things. Like, I was such a huge fan of Randy Rhoads. There'd be a moment where I would just have to want to hang with him. Then again, there's like Prince. That would be pretty cool. Pete Townsend would be cool. Not like I listen to Who every day. I just think he would be cool to be around with all the stuff he was doing, like recording wise and things like that. There's got to be way better other answers.
Well, I'll give you another chance to throw out some more names. So,
okay.
but it's again going to be an odd way of asking.
You know who I discovered? I saw a documentary on not too long ago. Was Betty Davis, not the actress, but she was married to Miles Davis.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Guess where she lives?
No idea.
Homestead, PA.
Are you kidding me?
No, I was shocked. I'm like, what? Like now, like she lives somewhere, an apartment in there.
Wow.
But check out her documentary. Such a cool documentary. She lived like a pretty freaking cool life. So that would be a fun one to tap for a while. But that was fresh in my mind because I just watched it. God, I mean, just God, I could jump all over the place.
All right, so now we're gonna jump to a different movie.
Okay.
So there's the scene in Forrest Gump where he's sitting with the box of chocolates and talking the person's ear off.
Uh-huh.
So let's say you're sitting on a bench and along comes your musical idol and they sit down beside you and you have a chance to talk their ear off, but you're only allowed to ask them one question.
Oh man,
who's gonna be sitting?
Like tough questions, dude.
Who's gonna sit down next to you, and what are you gonna ask them to get the conversation started?
I needed a week to prepare for these questions. It's like a thesis. I don't know. Like in some ways, Prince keeps coming to mind just because he was so freaking good at everything he did and all the aspects of it, and how like he controlled his career and his confidence and all that. But then I was actually interviewed by Susan, his engineer, for that thing I was telling you about in Nashville. So I kind of got to talk to her about it. So that was kind of close. So I'd have to use another. I mean, God, there's so many cheesy ones I could say, but I don't know, dude. I mean, in some way, I don't know. It's a hard question because I'm a bit jaded too. I've gotten to meet a lot of people, and I kind of know how things. I've been on both sides of the glass. You know, I've been a signed artist, and I've been a producer and an engineer. So it's like I'm a little jaded or a little cynical at this point. Like, I don't know what you're going to tell me that I would have done different. I probably would have screwed it up or just not made it like you did. I don't know, man. You're stumping me again. I'm not being creative with my answers here.
We can move on if you want.
But I mean, there's so many like little questions I'd want to ask so many different people. You know, you got.
No, give me a couple.
I need you know, they talk about those things where you have like a round table and you sit with all these dead people. I'd want to do that. You know, I'd have Hendrix there, and I'd have different people sitting around so that we could all bounce the ideas off. But you limit me to being on a bench with one.
You can give me a round table if it makes it easier for you.
Well, you know, so that's one of them. I don't know. There's so many, you know, from I guess they'd have to be at least from the 60s or 70s because they're the ones who went through it all, right? That would know a lot about everything. You know, all your classics. You know, we could throw a Beatle in there. Which Beatle? I don't even know. Maybe Pete Best, the drummer who didn't make it with him. That would be interesting.
To be famous for not being in a band.
Yeah, like what? Dude, tell me about that. Like the most iconic of all bands, and you were in it and didn't make it. I mean, that's a pretty heavy one. I actually friends with, haven't talked to him in years, but of course I haven't. I can't think of his name on Jason, who was in Nirvana and Soundgarden, and he was actually in a band with me for like a week. We were like doing a band, and Alien Psychoblast we were called. That was a name that was going to make it to the top. But he and like I've heard him talk about it since then, but that's a pretty wild one. He was like in he's in the pictures and in like a video, and you know they go on to be like both of them. Like, how do you get in two? But
so we're kind of pushing my time limit. So I do want to talk about your album Skylines. Tell us a little bit about it, where people can get copies of it. I personally checked it out on YouTube and Spotify, so I know it's there.
Yeah, it's on all the streaming platforms and all that. Yeah, that's me. That, you know, everybody assumes I'm going to do a guitar record or a rock record or something like that. And
it's not.
It's not at all. And I told people, I was warning people, like, it's not going to be that, but I don't know. They think I'm lying or something. They just couldn't, I don't know. They couldn't get their head around it. But I just wanted, you know, I just was itching to be creative. I've been so caught up making other people's music and doing, and then I tried starting it a few different times, and I just couldn't even get an idea or a sound or a trip I wanted to go. I just had a bunch of loops and stupid little ideas, and I just go, you suck, and start over. And I finally got on a little bit of roll. But yeah, I purposely wanted to do something that was, you know, not using guitars. I even tried to put some in, and it just wouldn't work, wouldn't fit. I don't know, it just wasn't going to happen. So I finally embraced that, said, don't even try it. You're just forcing it then. And, you know, I've always been interested in samplers since I was a teenager when it first came out. I just thought they were cool. I didn't know what I was ever going to do with them, but I thought they were cool. It was like, I just like those things. I don't know. It's just weird that you can do that. And so over the years, like in between gigs or jobs or whatever, I would kind of as a hobby play with those types of things and programming and manipulating sound. And but it's also really influenced by, who I said before, My Bloody Valentine and that type of stuff. So I was trying to do, kind of hit some of that flavor without guitars, which is weird because it's a full guitar band. But and it really was just, it's all about, I just wanted to be creative in a different way. I didn't necessarily want to have regular verse, chorus, bridge thing. I wanted no rules, odd sounds and beats. And so I just fully went there and saw where it would go, and then figured nobody will get it or like it. And I'm doing it anyway. So it was one of those just creative, I'm just doing it kind of things statement.
So we're not playing one of your tracks tonight, but on the show notes on buildthescene.com, there will be an embedded video of the song Flowers, which was the one that stuck with me when I was listening through it. I'm like, that's the one, I think. Yeah,
well, that was kind of supposed to be the one. Like, I have one with vocals on it, and I didn't know. I attempted to do some vocals. I just couldn't get anything happening that I liked. And I randomly made a phone call to David B, as I call him. Blumenheim is his last name, from the band Pet Clinic, who I'd done a demo with here in Pittsburgh, and we went down to Nashville and did some recording there as well. And I thought, you know, maybe he would. I go, dude, I'm going to send you something, just see if it even sparks you. And I figured, you know, he's not going to like this stuff. And he goes, yeah, I got something. What are you doing? Should I swing by? And I'm like, what? Like, what? Like now? And he's like, I go, sure. I'm like quickly setting up a mic in my basement. And he said, I just wrote some lines while I was driving in my head. And I go, great, man, go for it. And not expecting it would turn out, because I was so hit or miss. But he came up with that thing, and I was just started smiling, going, that's great. So it worked out that I had one track that at least it had a vocal and a vocal hook to it. So I thought, well, at least I can get them to at least listen to that song if they get bored on the rest, and because everything else is instrumental basically. So I'm glad it caught you.
All right, so I have one more oddball question for you, and then
all right. I've been doing terrible on these.
Well, this one, I'm going to ask it in a weird way, but don't focus on how I ask it.
Okay.
All right. So Robert Johnson and the blues foray of things,
sure,
is supposedly, you know, went to the crossroads and sold his soul to the devil, and then all of a sudden he could play guitar. So if you were going to sell your soul to the devil, what would you sell it for? In other words, what's that one thing that you
I could go on so many tangents on that. That was one now I could have talked to you an hour about, but I'll keep it to that. So what would I sell my soul for? What would be the payoff?
Yeah, that the one thing you really want.
Well, now it's too late. Now, if you would have asked me when I was like, 17, I wanted to be a rock. I was like so caught up in that I want to be a rock star thing. I was right there with that whole that whole young thing where I was, and then as it grew on. Now I'm like, thank God, kind of glad I didn't become one. Although the money would have been nice. What would I? Gosh, at this point, just I'm kind of okay at where I'm at. I wish the recording budgets were like they were in the 70s. Could I say that?
Yeah,
and they were all coming to me like, can I sell my soul for that? And then can I just like be able to live in the studio and not have to worry about that with my family? Everybody happy. That would be cool. That would probably be it.
I am back when I was dreaming of what I was going to do. I wanted to be a 4th grade teacher. Now I teach kindergarten through 8th grade. Specifically 4th grade. But I teach kindergarten through 8th grade.
Wow. Well,
so it's in there.
Yeah, I mean, you more than doubled what. Yeah, I mean, you got the whole school.
All but the preschoolers.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for hanging out with me tonight. This was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. This is cool. I like your whole setup.
Thank you. I have plenty more oddball questions if you want to come on again in a couple months.
All right. All right. Well, hopefully something cool will happen the next couple months. We have a reason to talk again.
Oh, I do have one more question. Over your shoulder, I see albums hanging on the wall. What do you got hanging up there?
Well, those two. It's the Pearl Jam Platinum record and the Alice in Chains. Afghan Wigs, my old band, stuff like that. I had a fortunate thing before I came out to Pittsburgh, where when I was moving stuff, my car got stolen, and I had a bunch of my records in the trunk because we were moving things, and never recovered those. And some great signed like things from Mother Love Bone and stuff like that. It's a bummer, but for some reason I had these separated somewhere else, so I still was able to retain some. But I digress. But that's what those are. So, and some stuff for my little basement studio.
I had no idea that's what was behind you, but that's cool. I've been looking at it all night.
the Pearl Jam one's cool. It's for 12 million records, so that's a good one.
But all right, well, this has been episode number 587 of the Pennsylvania Rock Show. Make sure you check us out each and every Friday on buildthescene.com and all those stations I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I'm not going to repeat again. You're about to hear some more of the best unsigned rock and metal that Pennsylvania has to offer. After that, you will hear Mr. John, the American Hilljack Lane, tell you how to subscribe, leave comments, and follow us. When you hear that, that's the end of the show. But don't leave the radio stations. They're supporting the shows and the music on the show, so you should hang out there and support the other songs and bands that they are playing for you. My name is Bill, and I will catch you next time.